Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholz. Today we have one of those very interesting stories where the writing informs how it sounds. And I know that seems a little silly, but really there are a few authors who captured the regionality of their stories in the writing and cadence itself. And this story by Anne Trumbull Slosson, who was not only a storyteller and author, but also an entomologist. Not that it has any bearing in particular on this story, I just found it very interesting. This is the Shet-Up Posy. Once there was a posy. 'Twa'n't a common kind of posy that blows out wide open so everybody can see its outsides and its insides too, but 'twas one of them posies like what grows down the road out back of your pa's sugar house, Danny, and don't come till way towards fall. They're sort of blue, but real dark, and they looks as if they was buds instead of posies, only buds open out and these don't. They're all shut up close and tight, and they never opens. Never mind how much sun they get, never mind how much rain or how much drought. Whether it's cold or hot, them posies stay shut up tight, kinda buddy, and not finished and humly. But if you pick 'em open, real careful with a pin, I've done it, you'll find they're dreadful pretty inside. You couldn't see a posy that was finished off better, nice and soft, and pretty little stripes painted on 'em, and all the little things like threads in the middle, such as the open posies has, standing up with little knots on their tops. Oh, so pretty, you never did. Makes you think real hard, that does. Leastways, makes me. What's they that way for? If they ain't never going to open out, what's the use of having the shut-up part so slicked up and nice, with nobody ever seeing it? Folks has different names for 'em, dumb foxgloves, blind geshens, and all that, but I always call her shut-up posies. Well, 'twas one of that kind of posy I was going to tell you about. 'Twas one of the shut-uppest and budsiest of all I'd seen. All blacky blue and straight up and down and shut up fast and tight. Nobody ever dreamed it was pretty inside, and the funny thing, it didn't know it was so itself. It thought it was a mistake somehow, thought it had ought to be a posy, and was begun for one, but wasn't finished, and was terrible unhappy. It knew there were pretty posies all around, goldenrod and purple daisies and all, and their inside was the right side, and they was proud of it, and held it open and showed the pretty lining, all soft and nice, with the fuzzy little yellow threads standing up, with the little balls on their tip ends. And the shut-up posy felt real bad, not mean and hateful and begrudging, you know, and wanting to take the nice part of the other posies, but sorry, and kinda ashamed. "Oh, dearie me," she says, "I most forgot to say 'twas a girl posy. Dearie me, what a humly, skimbly, awkward thing I be. I ain't more'n half made, there ain't no nice, pretty lining inside of me like them other posies, and all my wrong side shows, and that's just plain and common. I can't trick up folks like the goldenrod and daisies does. Nobody won't want to pick me and carry me home. I ain't no good to anybody, and I never shall be." So she kept on thinking these dreadful sorry thinkings, and most wishing she'd never been made at all. You know, 'twasn't just at first she felt this way. First she thought she was a bud, like lots of buds all around her, and she lotted on opening like they did. But when the days kept passing by and all the other buds opened up, she showed how pretty they was, and she didn't open. Why, then she got terrible discouraged, and I don't wonder a mite. She'd see the dew laying soft and cool on the other posies' faces, and the sun shining warm on them as they held 'em up, and sometimes she'd see a butterfly come down and light on 'em real soft and kind of put his head down to 'em as if he was kissing 'em, and she thought 'twould be powerful nice to hold her face up to all them pleasant things, but she couldn't. But one day, afore she got very old, afore she dried up or fell off or anything like that, she sees somebody coming along her way. 'Twas a man, and he was looking at all the posies real hard and particular, but he wasn't picking any of 'em. Seems as if he was looking for something different from what he see, and the poor little shut-up posy began to wonder what he was after. Finally she braced up, and she asked him about it in her shut-up whispering voice. And he says, the man says, "I'm a-picking posies. That's what I work at most of the time, 'tain't for myself," he says. "But the one I work for, I'm only his help. I run errands and do chores for him, and it's a particular kind of posy he sent me for today." "What does he want for him?" says the shut-up posy. "Why, to sit out in his garden," the man says. "He's got the beautifulest garden you ever seen, and I pick posies for it." "Dearie me," she thinks to herself, "I just wish he'd pick me, but I ain't the kind, I know." And then she says, so soft you can't hardly hear her, "What sort of posies are you after this time?" "Well," says the man, "it's a dreadful singular order I got today. I got to find a posy that's handsomer inside than 'tis outside. One that folks ain't took no notice of here, 'cause 'twas so homely and queer to look at, and not knowing that inside 'twas as handsome as any posy on the earth." "Seen any of that kind?" says the man. Well, the Shet-Up Posy was dreadful worked up. "Dearie dear," she says to herself. "Now, if they'd only finished me off inside. I'm the right kind outside, homely and queer enough, but there ain't nothing worth looking at inside, I'm certain of that." But she didn't say this nor anything else out loud, and bimeby, when the man had waited and didn't get any answer, began to look at the Shet-Up Posy more particular, to see why she was so mum. And all of a sudden he says, the man did, "Looks to me as if you was something of that kind yourself, ain't you?" "Oh, no, no, no," whispers the Shet-Up Posy. I wish I was. I'm all right outside, homely and awkward queer as it can be, but I ain't pretty inside. Oh, I most know I ain't." "I ain't so sure of that myself," says the man, "but I could tell in a jiffy." "Will you have to pick me to pieces?" says the Shet-Up Posy. "No, ma'am," says the man. "I got a way of telling. The one I work for showed me." The Shet-Up Posy never knowed what he'd done to her. I don't know myself, but 'twas something soft and pleasant that didn't hurt a mite, and then the man says, "Well, well, well." And that's all he said, but he took her up real gentle and began to carry her away. "Where you be taking me?" says the Shet-Up Posy. "Where you belong," says the man. "To the garden of the one I work for," he says. "I didn't know I was nice enough inside," says the Shet-Up Posy, very soft and still. "They most generally don't," says the man. And that is the Shet-Up Posy. And like I said, some of these stories really do dictate how they're read and how they sound. And, well, it's a regionality that comes with some of the tales. This one in particular. And I like this tale. It's about that hidden beauty that often isn't shown. And in flowers, it is in the posy. This is Dan Scholz for the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As always, thank you so much for listening.